Wonderful. Our financial supporters, we're very thankful from the Hillman Foundation and the Heinz Endowments for their generous support. And we have a number of individuals and companies that are also sponsoring. If you're not on the list and you'd like to be, we of course would welcome you to join us. We have sort of a three-legged stool in the way that the Solar Center operates. As a nonprofit organization, we like to walk the walk and actually help with technical assistance. And of course, that's what we're going to be talking a little bit about today. We also engage with outreach and public awareness and with many online resources for all solar stakeholders. And then we are involved in solar policy and educating policymakers about creating robust solar policies. And we'll talk about the Get Solar program here in a little bit, but the Get Solar program has been around for about 3 years. And through that process, where we've just taken organizations and businesses as they've kind of come to us, we've had about 31 projects, about 7.3 megawatts of solar potential out there for bid, and they're in various different stages. Some of those projects take several years to complete, to get through, but there are 6 projects that are completed or will be completed soon at the total investment of $3.2 million. So we're really excited about that program and how successful it has been to date. These are the 6 projects that have or will be soon completed, and we'll talk about which is relevant here is CCAC is a community college in Allegheny County, which is kind of relevant to a lot of the school conversations that we're having. But the Get Solar Communities program that we also just started, where we're actually working with communities themselves to try to get them to do outreach and tap into their communication networks to try to get non-tax exempt and businesses to come into the program. And we have a request for application out right now we'll be selecting 5 additional communities, and that application is due right after Labor Day. So if you're part of a community and you want to participate in that, and obviously these communities will also be reaching out to their schools to get them engaged too. But out of this project in just 6 months, we had 21 projects totaling capacity of 5.2 megawatts, and that just was put out to bid. And all of those projects are looking at their bids right now and trying to make decisions about moving forward. We're really excited to be partnering with Generation 180, and Shannon Crooker is going to talk to you a little bit more about that. So I'll let her tell you about Generation 180, but we're very excited to be partnering around their Solar for All Schools here in Pennsylvania. Some of the other things about our organization, we do have other online resources, including, of course, the webinar series. We have a monthly newsletter, a qualified developer directory. So if you are looking for developers in Pennsylvania, you can take a look at that. And we invite people to follow us, of course, on social media. And on the policy end, we have a solar policy guide with every piece of legislation that's solar related in Pennsylvania. And we're also working with Fair Shake Environmental Legal Service to create guidebooks for landowners who are leasing their land for solar, and also for large-scale solar development for municipalities. And that should be coming out later this summer or early this fall. And what I always like to do when we talk about this is to educate people about some things that are going on with energy in Pennsylvania. So right now, this is a little bit of this is our electricity mix. You can see where 2022 is, and on our electric mix, and where we're headed. So natural gas is the predominant resource for generating electricity now in Pennsylvania. It used to be coal, and you can see the gray line is where coal plants have gone off, and our nuke plants, I think a lot of people would like to see them in orange stay on, but so that's the trajectory. One of those things, and that's all really important for our energy mix right now. One of our concerns really is that we need to diversify our energy mix. And we can see why that's so important now. Electricity prices, I think all of you have seen these huge jumps, particularly in June. And a lot of that is because in the Public Utility Commission saying, you know, the price of natural gas is tied to these global markets. So it's really important that we start diversifying our energy mix and putting more renewables on the grid. Right now, Pennsylvania is not really keeping up with the Joneses, let's say. Our goals are only 8% by 2021. Last year, we've met all those goals for renewable energy. Solar goal is only 0.5% of that, and those were passed in 2004. So we really would like to see, of course, those goals increased. And doing so would have an enormous potential economic development opportunities in Pennsylvania. Just even if we got to 5% solar, we're talking about 30,000 jobs, billions of dollars in economic investment, diversifying our energy a little bit more. And once we get to 5% and even to 10% solar, that starts bringing the cost of electricity down for everyone across the board, even if they don't have solar on their rooftops. So for you thinking about going solar, you're participating in all of these things and making them happen across the board and including saving yourselves money. As I mentioned, we'd like to see those goals increase. We do not have community solar in Pennsylvania, which we won't go into now, but we're hoping that that does get passed. And there are a lot of federal programs that we'll probably mention that are just coming out that recently too, and lots of different business models and incentives. And we'll be trying to lift up education around those things and then share stories that are happening across solar all across our state. So thanks again for being here today. And we'll dive right into the meat of this webinar today. And I'm going to turn it first over to Shannon Crooker. We thank all of our speakers for taking the time and sharing their expertise and their stories with us today. So Shannon is the director, the Pennsylvania director for Generation 180 and working heavily on the solar for all schools. So thanks, Shannon, for being here.
Thanks so much, Sharon. I just want to make sure everyone can see my slides. Perfect. We are very thankful to be here, and we're excited to spread the news, the good news about solar schools. And first, we'll tell you a little bit about ourselves, why Pennsylvania, and then what the landscape looks a little bit. And then I'm excited that we have superintendents here who can share their stories directly with you. Generation 180 is a nonprofit that's designed to inspire and equip individuals to take action in the clean energy revolution. And we do that focusing on two primary sectors, the transportation sectors and electrifying our ride, and then Solar for All Schools, which is why we are here today. Our Solar for All Schools program is designed to enable access to solar. We want it to be more accessible to school leaders, facilities managers, to the students who are in the schools and can learn from these programs or learn from the systems directly. And we want to focus on the good news. We're really good at sharing the story. We usually, not usually, we are great at getting the good news out to the media. Like that's what we want to share, what the school districts are doing all over, whether it's a small district in Batesville, Arkansas, who was able to give raises to all their teachers because they went solar, our communities here in Pennsylvania that were heavily fossil fuel oriented now that made the switch to 100% solar. So we're here to bring the educational leaders together through our networks. That way they can serve as a resource to each other, as well as to anyone that's looking to go solar and start their journey. You could go to our website, solarforallschools.org, and you'll have access to all of these great resources. And you can always feel free to call us or reach out to us to learn more. As Sharon said, we're very excited to announce that we are partnering with the PA Solar Center to offer free technical assistance to schools through the PA Solar Center's Get Solar program. We'll help you do the outreach, understand some of the basics, enroll your school in the program, and then they will carry you over the finish line and give you guidance on the financial structure as well as any of the complex technical information that may be associated with it, and even help you through the RFP process. But Sharon will probably talk a little bit more about that later. But either way, we are very happy to announce this right in time for the school year starting. So why Pennsylvania? We've been mapping the solar schools movement for quite a while. We really feel that schools should not be left behind. They are the places where the future leaders of tomorrow are nourished and developed, and they have to be part of this energy transition. And the earlier they start, the better. We found in our last report in 2020 that Pennsylvania was underperforming compared to our neighbors. New York has double the amount of solar on their schools, while Maryland has triple. I should caveat that, yes, their electricity is more expensive, which is probably one of the reasons, but we're seeing our electricity prices going up, as Sharon said earlier. At the time of 2015 or 2020, Pennsylvania ranked 13 in total solar capacity, and then 25th for the number of schools that have gone solar. Through a partnership or a collaboration with FedEx Ground, who's headquartered in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, we were able to kickstart this campaign, and here we are partnering with PA Solar Center to advance more schools. So what does it look like here in Pennsylvania since then? Not too bad. The amount of solar has doubled on schools in the last 2 years during the pandemic, which we were really excited to find. So we went from 15 megawatts to just about 30, which is equivalent to removing 5,000 gas-fueled cars off the road each year. Pretty significant. If we were to keep on this trajectory, we'd be about 50 megawatts in the next 5 years. That's enough to reforest the whole city of Pittsburgh and Scranton. Can you imagine just walking through a completely forested Allegheny? We are a forested state. That's how we used to be. So it would be tremendous offsets if all schools went solar, or even if we just stayed on this trajectory. And I know that there's some things bubbling in the pipeline that we'll probably see quite a few schools making the switch soon. And hopefully you'll hear from schools who have success stories and learn from yourself. So what does this look like? We have over 107 schools, which is about 2% of our total schools. That's not bad. It sounds like a low number, but when you look at the national number from 2020 in our last report, it was about 5.5%, which includes California, Hawaii, Massachusetts, states who are known to have a lot of solar. So I think all in all, we're doing pretty good. There's still a lot of potential to move the pendulum forward. And about 90,000 students are benefiting and using solar in their classrooms in one way or another because of these systems, which is always a great opportunity when we can reinvest and enhance education for students. So what does it look like when you look at the landscape or the map? One thing you can probably notice is that Western PVA is not doing so well compared to the Eastern or Central half. Maybe we can start a friendly competition if you like and get Western PA on board. It's not all doom and gloom out there. I do know that there's about a handful of schools, maybe almost 10, that are actually looking and exploring solar in Pittsburgh, or not in Pittsburgh, in Western PA. So hopefully we'll see more. The two larger districts, Midwest, which we're going to hear about later today, and Tamaqua are both rural school districts with large arrays. Tamaqua is a great story because of their array is located on an abandoned strip mine. And we always love when someone flips the script and goes from fossil fuel to renewable energy, and Tamaqua has most definitely done that. And we are most definitely excited to celebrate with them. Here are the top 10 schools. And one thing I want to point out here is that every school district is different. So we're going to hear from Steelton-Highspire later today. Mick Iskric is going to talk about their school. But if you look and notice, Bethlehem has a system that's about the same size. Bethlehem has 22 buildings, and this system at 1.6 megawatts offsets about 9% of their energy. Steelton-Highspire, on the other hand, has 2 buildings, and it offsets over 100% of their energy costs. So each school district is different, and you can't just go apples and apples. Obviously, it's going to depend on the size of your school district, your buildings, and the space you have for solar, whether it's rooftop or ground arrays. And then Carlisle and Cumberland are tied at the very end. We're hoping we'll see more schools next year. And how are schools doing this? Through a third-party partnership agreement. This is a really great opportunity for public schools to partner with private investors who can monetize the investment tax credit, which is an incentive from the federal government. Since a private investor has the tax liability, they're able to use that, finance and own the system, and the school has no out-of-pocket costs or low to no out-of-pocket costs. They don't have to maintain the system because the owner of the system is responsible for that. And the way it works out is that they are charged as if they're given a new electricity bill from the actual solar developer or the investors of the system. And they will be charged for the electricity generated from the system. 3/4 of the schools in the last 2 years use this method, and that's on par with our national average, which is close to 80%. Excuse me, based on our 2020 data. We are releasing a report in the fall, so that may change, we'll see. And you'll see the economy of scales works in favor for PPAs. The larger the system, the more accessible it will be. And we see the smaller systems, which are more like demonstration projects, or they only maybe also a small portion are grant funded or donated. So PPAs just make it much more accessible, eliminating that upfront cost barrier to going solar. So it's most definitely accessible through the third-party ownership agreement. And there's benefits well beyond the cost. One, it puts you in charge of your energy. Obviously less pollution, so a healthier planet, healthier people, and it enhances the STEM curriculum. We have Midwest students here, a high school student showing a 4th grader how to fly a hot air balloon with solar energy. So there's a lot of hands-on opportunity in addition to data analysis that can be enhanced through going solar. Not only that, students can start leading and taking the charge and start their own campaigns to convince their students or their schools to go solar. We'll learn about that in just a moment. There's opportunities for training for careers right out of high school. And then of course, agriculture. And with agriculture, not only can future farmers of America learn about grazing animals or certain types of crops, they have the opportunity, the school has the opportunity to have free maintenance because there's someone mowing the lawn for them around the systems. So we're going to look at a couple ground arrays. So I wanted to focus on a few rooftop solars. And I chose Pottsville because this one really kind of stood out to me. A couple of years ago, I was working at Sustainable Energy Fund and we did an energy audit of the Historical Society for Pottsville. And there was just pictures of children my son's age, 10 or younger, in coal mines from the late 1800s, early 1900s. It was kind of devastating, and look at them, they did a complete turn. They're powering about half of their energy through solar, and it's a large spread rural district. It covers about 180 miles total. So I imagine their schools are pretty spread out. This was a GreenWorks development project, and they're offsetting about 48% of their energy, saving $40,000 a year. And if they were to purchase the system at the end of year 5, year 6, they would save even more money, over $125,000. And then Tuscarora, I thought, was a really great project as well. They have 2 arrays on 2 systems. And what they did, and this is an older project, it's from 2017, they were already powering their hot water with solar thermal, and they had a windmill. So they decided to elevate their renewable energy commitment and go full steam ahead with 10% offset. So one, the generated revenue, because they're selling excess to the grid through net metering, and then they have an opportunity to save about $22,000 a year. The other array is on their elementary school. This is a RER project from quite a few years ago, and I put the financing opportunities back In 2017, there was a state program where you get low interest loans, and then Weston Power Sustainable Energy Fund also was a financier. And the electricity rate that they had was 4.5 cents per kilowatt hour, which is significantly and really good. I think that actually might be better than some of the more current ones. But that was because there was a lot of state incentives. And we're hoping with the Inflation Reduction Act that we'll see a lot more opportunity for solar. And then real quick, two educational ones. The School District of Philadelphia has partnered with the Philadelphia Energy Authority through a grant from Department of Education. So many acronyms, but I went with their full names, which is a mouthful. This program is gonna prepare students from 10th to 12th grade to be ready for right out of high school to get a job with a solar installer, or to learn more about engineering and decide to become an energy engineer. It's great either way, whatever they choose. The solar energy and energy efficiency careers are growing and booming, and we need the people to fill this. And this provides an on-ramp for more diverse students to arrive. And we're hoping that more school districts across the Pennsylvania, across the US, will start having programs, vocational programs designed to enable students to be part of the energy transition. If you're in the Pittsburgh area, this is a very exciting project at Woodland Hills School District. 8th graders wrote to their school board and presented to their school board that they wanted to have a climate action resolution. So they enabled it. It was the first one in the state. And not only that, they started a climate action committee and have a plan to reduce their emissions 100% by 2050. So they have some big ambitious goals to include advocacy and educational information on climate change. And they did this through a partnership with Communitopia out in Pittsburgh. But it's amazing when you see students leading the charge. And one of the most exciting things about this, so they started in 2019 with a climate action resolution. Now in 2022, they are officially under contract with BIA Group to go solar. So hopefully we'll hear soon of what their project looks like. So students indeed can lead the charge. So I really want to thank you for giving us the time, for listening. We have a lot of resources on our website. If you want to go see the actual campaign page, please go to Solar for All Schools -PA. We're looking for help from consultants who might want to, our community outreach coordinators that can help us advance this, because we would love to see more schools go solar. And thank you again for the Solar Center for having us. And I want to introduce Mick Iskric, who's going to talk about the Steelton-Highspire solar journey. So without further ado, Mick, please take over.
Yep. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mick Iskric. I'm the superintendent of the Steelton-Highspire School District, located in Steelton, Pennsylvania, just outside of Harrisburg, our state capital. And I'll wait for the slides to pop up here. Just as we get started, I'll give you some district background. We are a school district that's made up of two boroughs, two small boroughs, Steelton and Highspire. We're an urban school district located outside of Harrisburg. And within that, we actually serve a population of roughly 92% poverty. And the school district has two buildings. We have an elementary building that serves K to 6 and a junior senior high school that's 7 to 12. So Sharon, I'm on my second slide, by the way. Thanks. And one of the things that we look for is we look for little projects that are going to help offset our general fund and various expenses, because traditionally we've been underfunded to the tune of $6,500 per student, or a little bit over $8 million per year. So it's a very challenging situation we put ourselves in. So we do some things with our partners to help take advantage of different opportunities to offset general fund. Next slide, please. So one of our longstanding partners, McClure Company, we have a longstanding partnership with them, trusting relationship with them. And if you see some of the past projects that we did from 2003 all the way to 2012, we did some various energy savings projects. And within those, those 4 projects alone have saved the district over $7.4 million. That was many, almost 10 years ago. So we try to do different things along the way. And within this process, McClure Company came to us and proposed a solar initiative. And within that solar initiative, the next slide, please, is we were looking at doing an ESCO project where we were updating various lighting projects within our school buildings. And you can see that we did a ground mounted system, and you'll see some pictures here in a minute, to help offset 100%. We actually are offsetting over 100% of our electric needs right now. There was no out-of-pocket expense for us. Everything was led with McClure and moving forward with the various federal and state tax liabilities. We did the LED project in both our buildings that helped actually determine the size of our solar array that we needed. And actually, when we get to the one slide, I'll show you actually what we're producing today, but we're actually exceeding what the original estimates were for what we could bring in for solar for what we were generating. So we've continued, we've had a 19-year relationship with McClure, and we have service agreements and maintenance agreements with them. So we do different things there as a partner. This just helped add to the partnership that we have with them. So basically, over the 20-year project of our solar project, we're going to save roughly $1.6 million. So you're saving that type of money over 20 years, and the panel life is 40 years. Save roughly $13,000 for the first 13 years, and then it jumps to $201 over the remaining 7. But we're actually generating more than that. Our last bill, we got a credit of $15,000 for our May bill, May electric bill. So we're generating money through this process. So we're using it as a revenue generator as well. Next slide, please. One of the unique features about this is we had an active landfill behind our high school and on our campus until like the early 2000s. In 2006, we built an elementary school. So leading up to that, it was unusable space. We did core tests of the grounds, and we did different things associated with that to see if we could build a structure there, and it could not build a structure. So we were able to repurpose that with our entire solar array. So the picture on the left is the green space that was the landfill, and the picture on the right is actually our solar array that's located behind both buildings, our high school and our elementary, all on one campus. One thing that's unique too is we had to do ground. It's almost like we couldn't drill into the ground to place the solar panels. We had to put them in huge tubs of concrete to be able to secure them because of being on a landfill, and we didn't want to. You couldn't have this penetrating unstable ground. Next slide will show you a couple more photos of the solar array, and you just see the size of it and the space that it has. One thing about us is we're pretty unique. We actually have roughly 52 acres on our campus, although we're an urban school. And then we have a off-campus football field that's roughly 10 acres. But you can see we had the space to be able to do this. And our next slide has, what did this project actually do for our district? As I said earlier, we say we're going to save a projected 1.6 million, but honestly, it's generating some revenue, for us, which is outstanding for us. The other side of it is curriculum opportunities. As we look for our partnerships and as we look to grow different things, we look to do things that are beneficial to the students, but then also, beneficial to our communities as well. So each building has a flat screen TV. And Sharon, I'm not sure if you can pull up the link or not within there, but if you can't, I believe you guys are all getting the slides and different things like that, but you'll be able to enter that link in and see what we're generating. And I have it up on another screen here in my office, but right now, currently, and the sun is shining in Harrisburg, so we're generating 1.26 megawatts right now. Like, we're maxed out, and it's really producing a lot of electricity, like at the very minute. So, and then the next slide kind of talks about our continued partnership. So, we value our partnership with McClure, and we do a lot of great things with McClure. So growing forward, we're going to continue our maintenance contract with them, maintenance agreement for not only the solar project, but also our various energy projects around the building. We're going to look at various ways. We're continuous energy analysis. We know that we want to have we want to reduce our carbon footprint every chance we get. So we're doing anything we can with those conversations, as looking at every nook and cranny of our district and seeing what else we can do. Future projects, we're looking at electric charging stations for buses, and we're looking at or for cars and visitors, and then also our staff being able to offset some of our staff drive an hour away. And actually they reached out about, hey, they saw that the solar project went online in May, or we had our ribbon cutting in May. It's been online since January, but they were asking, they were like, well, I have a long commute. I'm looking at buying an electric vehicle. Would you guys consider putting in a charging station? And honestly, in these tough times, with inflation and different things like that, we'll do anything to try to benefit our staff and our students and stuff. So immediately I had a conversation with our representatives from McClure, and we started exploring ways to bring charging stations to our district. And then that led into the initiatives that are out there from the federal government around electric school buses and those types of things. So we're looking at doing different things that we can utilize our current solar project. But like I said earlier in the presentation, we have a 10-acre parcel located in Steelton where we have our football field. So we're looking at other projects there potentially, that we could bring solar there and do some things with charging stations and just, there's nothing nothing is off the table. One of the things that I continue to say with my constituents and my partners here is, as a district that's traditionally underfunded, we look for ways that we can get little wins along the way. And those little wins are going to provide big dividends when we try to provide programming and various things for our students. So every little bit that I offset from the general fund allows me to gather more information or be able to provide more programming for students. If I can save 15,000 for 4 months, well, that's 60,000. So now I can look at bringing in a reading specialist to really drive into, the needs of the students. So I look at any little small win like that, and through the solar initiative, those are the types of things that my community deserves and my students deserve. So that pretty much sums it up. I just wanted to hit a couple highlights of the project and let you guys kind of hear about, the successes that we were having with things. And I know so there's some, you guys are to put questions in the Q&A, but my next slide does ask for questions, but that's okay.
Thank you so much, Mick. This is really exciting, and what a wonderful story. I was wondering if you could share how the students have received this and also the public.
So we just had the ribbon cutting in May. So the students didn't right away have, with the end of the school year and everything wrapping up, they didn't really hit the ground running with the project like they could. But in the summertime, we did some things with our summer academies and those types of things. So they utilized working with some of our science teachers to start to analyze data and look at things like that. So they're starting to embed it in the curriculum. I'll be honest with you, the community they love it. I mean, when you're sitting here and you're looking at our school district has the highest millage rate in Dauphin County. So, we're kind of maxed out when it comes to tapping into our local funds. So we do anything we can to help offset any of those expenses so we don't have to raise taxes, or if you ever do, it's very, very minimal. And we know times are very tough. And when I serve a population of economically disadvantaged, the size that we do right now, like I said, I'll go back to that small wins and you want to do anything that can help the communities along with the school district along the way.
Thanks. And I was also wondering if for other schools that are thinking about this, is there any advice for approaching the school board and the process to get this started that you have learned that maybe you could share?
Yeah, actually, one of our other partners, we partner with Energy Controls that does a lot with our HVAC and our system controls. So we actually have a energy consultant from there that helps review a lot of our projects. And he actually reviewed a lot of things. He was a great partner to us that helped show us where we wanted to go. And honestly, the partnership with McClure, like that was the thing. We looked at our existing partners and the long-lasting relationships and what we could do to move forward. You know, and I know McClure would be one of those companies that would constantly, they'd be open to conversations. So, you know, my information was on the first slide and I can connect to anyone with any of that type of stuff. And I'd welcome anyone to come take a tour of it also and see what we have and really dive into it. But you know, we were kind of met with the best of both worlds. We had a space that we weren't able to build on, and we were able to do something that offset costs right away. So those are the types of projects that we look for. So that's kind of like the advice. I would look at those things, like look at your existing partners, look at what they could do for you, and look at where you are as a district with your finances, and you know, anything that can benefit the community and then leave a lasting impression, you know, in this world right now, you know, is going to be a benefit. And then the long-term plan, you know, long-term effect of this is the students seeing the district take a strong initiative, you know, towards reducing the carbon footprint and going green and those types of things. And then you hope that a handful of them take that as they move on from our district. So.
That's great. Thank you so much. We did have one question in the Q&A about the impact of an installation to a roofing warranty. And that is something that you usually flat roofs, as you same as on the landfill, you don't penetrate a flat roof. And so those systems would be ballasted too, meaning that they're weighted down, just like Mick talked about on the landfill. And so that's why it's really important to work with a very experienced developer and installation company so that they know what they're doing and that they don't violate your roof warranty. I don't know if there's any other questions for Mick. If not, we can come back to you later, but I'm going to turn it over now to Rick Musselman, who is, let me change to his slide. Rick actually has a really unique position because he was the superintendent before at a school that went solar, and he will tell you a little bit, but he's also working for GreenWorks development now as well. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Rick. Thanks a lot for being here.
All right, Sharon. Well, thank you so much. Let me just share quickly kind of my story a little bit, also a Midwest story. And we do have a few slides in as well we can look at. But being a superintendent that's retired, I was an assistant superintendent and a superintendent back in the early 2000s and even 08, 09, where I had the displeasure of going and telling people they were furloughed, and having school districts that had to cut programs and also had to not just academic programs, but also athletic and extracurricular programs, and going through some of that turmoil that was required for schools to stay open during that time. And one of the things I really wanted to do was never, ever, ever put myself or my school district in that position again. And so I was a superintendent in another school district, and then I went to Midwest. And one of the things that I looked at while I was at Midwest, and I think you do this at every school district, you look at the resources that they have and also the potential that they have. And so while at Midwest, we basically, with my board, we wanted to look at what ways we could improve our solar standing, or not just our solar, but improve our financial standing. And so we made sure that our buildings were, first of all, energy efficient. We went through the energy projects where we put geothermal in. We also very well insulated. We sealed up the envelope of our buildings, and we also included a lot of security. But our next step moving forward was, how can we actually generate some of our own electricity? The Midwest School District, we were paying around $300,000 a year for electricity. And we were also very blessed to have years before I got there, we had bought a farm that was behind our school district. So we had a lot of land. We had a couple strips of land that quite honestly weren't very useful. There were some low-lying lands, there were streams that run through them, and just their location wasn't necessarily the best. So probably about 2008, I started to look at the possibility of bringing solar into our school district. And it was a longer process because we looked at many different ways of doing that. And one of the ways we settled on, obviously, was the program that we have. So if you can go to my first slide. Currently, Midwest School District has a 2.5 megawatt combined array on about 7.25 acres. And you can see a picture there on the left. That strip of land is pretty low lying. It does have there's a stream that runs in between those two solar arrays that we have there, and it's not used for a whole lot. And so we actually were able to put this solar array on those acres there, around 6 acres, right there near my main campus that services 3 of our schools, an elementary school, a middle school, and a high school. And district office, and obviously our playing fields are there as well. Now that array only offset about 96% of the district's electric usage. And so it wasn't 100% of the electricity that we could put in there, but at the time it was about all that we could put in. And also, if you look at the slide on the right, there's a smaller solar array that we have at our remote elementary school as well. So that's on a 1.25 acre land that we have. And so we were able to put in, all of our schools now are on solar. So we were looking at over $185,000 a year savings after the buyout in year 6. And before 90% of the electricity increase over the past 2 years. So what I'm saying is when we put those solar arrays in, we didn't know what was going to happen at the time. We didn't know COVID was going to hit. We didn't know that the electric rates are going to be up. We didn't know the economy was going to do what the economy has done. But we went in because we felt that you lead by example. And if you're going to take, and first of all, you just as Mick had said, if we're going to save money for our school district and be able to move forward, we needed to act now, take that leadership and take that step of faith and go out there and put in these solar arrays. So we did what we could do and we were allowed to do. So we put in our solar arrays, and they were turned on in November of 21. Now what we're looking at is the savings after we buy it out. So we do not own those panels. We didn't put a single dollar down to put any of those panels in, or the entire system. We didn't put any money down. So we do have a PPA that another company basically owns those. After 5 years, in year 6, we will buy those. We will buy that out, and then Midwest School District will own those. Not we, they. I'm not the superintendent anymore. They will actually buy out those panels, and they will own those for the duration. Again, they are, just as Mick had said, they are actually warranted for 40 years. Some actually probably could go longer than that, but that's going to provide electrical service for the Midwest School District, at least for the next 40 years. And they're looking at a saving buyout of $350,000 per year. And so if you look at that over the 40 years, that is an $8.9 million savings over the next 40 years that we're going to have for the Midwest School District. But the other thing is that there have been increases, and with the increases in electricity, just from the time we turned that switch on until now, we could be looking at over $15 million increases, because I don't know what's going to happen in the future. So the initiative that you take now is the impact of it in the future. We're not even sure how great of an impact, but it was the right move for us to make. So if you go to the next slide. So as I said, Midwest School District, the system that we had was only providing about 95% of our electricity. Since I left, they're actually looking at doing another solar project, because they're now allowed to go to 110% of their usage. And so they're looking at a 475 kilowatt array. And I believe they're going to be looking at putting it on the roof, but they also have a land option as well. So that's going to offset an additional 14% of the district's electricity and put them up to 110% of the offset. Now that includes their virtual net metering electricity, the stadium as well. And so that stadium basically, which they are building a new stadium, will be marketed as a net zero energy. So it's that stadium's not utilizing any energy. So that's a good selling point for the school board and the current superintendent to use for the community, because anytime you spend money, you know, people want to know where that money's come from. So I will be happy. I mean, I'd be happy. I'm happy to say that, you know, over the past about 9 years, we've only raised our taxes 0.5 mils. And that's because of not just the solar, but also a few other things that we were able to do to actually reduce the cost, operating costs for our school district. And so we're not a wealthy school district. You know, we're about, you know, a few miles northwest of where Mick's sitting right now. So we're not certainly a wealthy school district, but we've been able to offset a lot of our costs, and solar was a big part of it. So over a 50,000 additional annual savings, over 400,000 after the system's purchased. So we're looking at, with this second system, they'll be able to save an additional amount of money with this system that they're going to be put up. And the other part of that is that I think Mick might have brought it up, but SRECs that we actually earn from our solar system, we can sell those, and we actually are making money, not just saving on electricity, but actually making money by being able to sell those solar or those SRECs out in the community. And we do hope that those go up, because that's an additional savings or income basically that the school district will be able to see. So we have this new array will add an additional 2.5 million in savings to that 40 years. So it's now over 17.5 million dollars in savings that we'll have. And again, we didn't spend any money to put these in for the first project, and they won't spend any money to put in this second project. And if they go forward with the phase 2, they haven't approved this yet, but it's under serious consideration, and we do hope that they actually are able to go ahead and put these in. If you can go to the next slide. The next slide just shows, the yellow line shows basically how we're serviced by PPL, and they show where the rates have been since Midwest put in their solar array. If you look at that, you're looking around, you know, 6 cents per kilowatt hour that it was when we put our array in, and it's up to around 12 cents a kilowatt hour now. So it's like 90% 92% is in over 2 years, in 24 months, PPL will raise their rate twice a month, that Midwest is actually able to save on their electricity. So I was at a board meeting with another school district, and one of the board members, you know, made the comment that, hey, Midwest just happened to put their system in at the right time. Well, I don't know the Midwest put it in at the right time. If it would have been in 2 or 3 years earlier, we'd have been saving more money. But the thing is that leadership, regardless of where you're at in your organization, sometimes you have to make those decisions and put them in. Now, today is the right time to put one in for 2, 3, 4 years down the road. We don't see these energy prices necessarily going down, and obviously electrical prices are going to go up. They're not going to stay flat. So it takes leaders that are going to be able to step out in faith and put it in because it's the right thing to do. And I will admit, we looked at it primarily as a fiscal for Midwest School District. We looked at it as a fiscal savings for the school district, but there are certainly a lot of environmental pluses to put it in a solar system as well, and you lead by example. I believe there was a slide earlier that Shannon was showing of some of our students. I had the opportunity, I got invited to go, they seem to like me in Midwest, so they invited me back actually to, we had some of our STEM students in our high school who actually did an exercise with some of the elementary students, and they did a lot of different things with those students, just showing the power of the sun and what it can do. Not necessarily just creating electricity, but just generating heat, flying a hot air balloon, cooking s'mores, which that was a favorite of all the kids. But it's important that our students see us as a school district or as a community supporting them, looking at other alternative ways. I don't know what the future is going to hold. Maybe there'll be something greater than solar in the future, or maybe solar panels will be changed. But now's the right time to make those decisions. And I will say that as superintendent, for me, I've been involved with many building projects, and as assistant superintendent or principal or then a superintendent, this was one of the simplest projects that I ever did. I worked with GreenWorks Development. Doug Knighty came and he and his team talked with us and walked us through the whole process. Frankly, it was one of the simplest projects I've ever been a part of. It took some time because there's a lot of paperwork and different things that have to be done, but honestly, it was a really simple project. And I know that Mick brought up about McClure, but I'd recommend also GreenWorks. They did allow me to, I had the opportunity of doing some of these webinars and different discussions with about our solar project before. And then after I retired, GreenWorks came to me and asked if I would help them. And frankly, I'd like to see as many school districts as possible because it's an easy project. It makes fiscal sense. It's good for the community and the environment. And I just hope most school districts take the opportunity. And you have to look at what you have available. We had land. It sounds like Steelton had land, but rooftops are another possible way. And I know somebody brought up about, warranties, the ballast systems that are put on. There's some degree of protection also for that roof that they can also last a little bit longer if you put a solar panel on top of that roof. So there's viable solutions that are out there. We just have to be creative and look at what the ability is and bring in the right people to talk to and say, here's what we have and let's look at potential. And I know we're looking at a school district that has an old elementary school that they've abandoned and it's just sitting. They're looking at selling it and it's within 2 miles of their other campus. They can put a solar system on that land at that location and actually be able to still net meter the rest of their school district and provide electricity for the school. So there are possibilities, and it doesn't have to be 110% or even 90%, even 50% is starting to cut down those costs. You're still making, you still have SRECs that you can sell, and it's still a smart move, I believe, for the school district. One of the challenges I see, just as I sit back and I look at this, and I'm a proud American, and I'm not ashamed to say that. So one of the things that concerns me is the distribution. And I think some of our electrical companies and how they're set up and structured, I think some of that's going to have to come up because as we move more to electrical cars and different electrical types and move away from some of the fossil fuels, how are you going to distribute that electricity? That's the concern, obviously, in the future. But I think as a school district, one of the things you need to do is set that example, start cutting down some of your operational costs because that's not taking it away from kids. So I hope I adequately shared the Midwest story, at least from my end of it, and they're still moving forward. So I was kind of proud to be a part of that and get it going, but they're taking the ball and running and actually adding more. So it looks like they'll be adding more solar to their campus and actually be able to go to 110%. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Rick. Another really exciting story. You mentioned a couple things and virtual net metering, which you touched on a little bit, but I just wanted to kind of explain a little bit to people that if you've got multiple meters or multiple buildings, and as Rick mentioned, if they're within 2 miles of each other, you can have that central solar system and then be credited on all of the bills for those meters. So that's a really nice benefit that we do have in Pennsylvania. And the other thing you mentioned are the SRECs, the solar renewable energy credits. And sometimes the schools end up having those and keeping them, which is a great benefit. Sometimes the developer keeps them. And I think that's just another thing to pay attention to when you're looking at choosing a developer to work with. And that can translate into financing in different ways. So those renewable credits are based on our state policies, which, as I showed you at the beginning, are not so great right now. So if we do increase those goals, that will help the value of those solar renewable energy credits and help them go up. So yeah, so I just wanted to touch on those things. So thanks, Rick. Again, if other people have questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A for Rick or others as we're going through. And I'm going to turn it over now to Eitan Anouchi. And Eitan is the president of AYA Instruments. And I'll let him tell you a little bit about AYA, but they have a unique STEM-focused product that's working with solar and schools. And so I will turn it over to Eitan and he can tell you all about it. Thanks, Eitan.
Thank you, Sharon. My name is Eitan Anouchi. I am the president of AYA Instruments. AYA Instruments for over 30 years has been supplying the power industry with power monitoring, metering, and measuring, as well as some cloud control instrumentation. We've been specifically supplying the solar industry for over 15 years, including developers and researchers. The Energy Discovery Zone was created as a educational project that is now a subsidiary of AYA Instruments with a mission and purpose for creating, developing global educational community that will continuously teach individuals about the importance of energy and how we harness it. Next slide. One more. So we are, so it's a collaborative learning project that provides students with hands-on experiences and with field equipment used by industry professionals. Like Shannon had mentioned, bringing this equipment onto school sites can allow students to be able to engage in the data coming off of it, to kind of analyze it, but it also gives them experience seeing it and touching it. And what our project was really based around was we were getting feedback from different clients of ours that they were looking for more skilled labor. They were looking for people who could come and work with them and do the installations. So what we wanted to do was bring some of this technology into the students' hands and give them more of an education that's hands-on, building the skill set that they would need when graduating high school, to be able to actually go into a job within the industry, or even not within the industry, but take information that they learned about energy and about technology and apply it to wherever they end up. So we offer specialized electrical equipment that goes hand in hand with a comprehensive curriculum. And like I said, we were collaborating with schools and companies to develop the material for teaching skills that are needed for today and tomorrow's jobs in energy, technology, and sustainability. Next slide. The curriculum that we have shows how the concepts within the solar system can be applied to the real world, whether it's, you're taking into account your geographic location or how far apart things can be to be able to have your net metering, or even just how far the lines are even on transmission before you start having energy degradation or issues with transmission. The program is there to teach about the complex electrical equipment and then all the software that goes into it that's then taking those electrical signals and converting that into meaningful data. And it kind of is there to simplify what seems to be very complex into a lot simpler, understandable terms, and things that students can actually wrap their heads around and get that hands-on experience. The program is very well suited for vocational training programs because it directly correlates from the skill sets that you can learn in the classroom right into the workplace skills that are needed for today's and tomorrow's jobs. Next slide. This picture is a picture of Mike Letty's class from Parkway West Career and Technology Center, Career and Training Center. They had gotten a system and they were first using it as just an extra credit program just for the seniors. He had such good feedback that he actually expanded it and then made it a mandatory part starting in the 9th grade, going all the way through 10th. And this picture on this slide is actually of some of the kids that were bussed over and actually made the installation over at West Allegheny Middle School. So we were able to actually teach the students about it and then give them an opportunity to actually install another system at a different school. And that actually is part of the requirements for NABCEP certification for the solar industry, where you need to have classroom hours along with actual install hours. And so this was able to serve as one, which Mike Letty now has 2 students who graduated from his electrical studies class that have now been employed within the solar industry. So we're seeing that direct correlation between the education that we were helping to provide and students getting jobs right out of high school. We have other companies as well that have seen the curriculum that we're working on and are saying that if students can show an interest and be able to show a mastery of certain skills related to installing solar equipment, then they can be offered internships. We've also now bridged our program between just solar energy to now include also electric vehicles. We're currently developing curriculum to be able to go ahead and train up and certify students to be able to work on electric vehicles as technicians and to install the electrical infrastructure required to go ahead and charge and recharge all the electric vehicles that are going to be needing power. Next slide. So the EDZ members are currently range from elementary schools to high schools, and now even a community organization that has installed a system that is not just teaching the K through 12 students, but also community members that are post high school, but are looking to either get retrained in other things to be able to provide income for their family. And currently there's 8 students at New Sun Rising's facility that are currently learning how to sell solar. So they're learning all the aspects of the equipment and how it all works together. And then at the end of their training program, they're going to be able to go out and get jobs to help sell solar within the community. Being that we have a range of elementary, high school, and community organizations, our curriculum is able to be adapted to every single age group, whether we're in the kindergarten classes talking about shading, and when you're out in the sun, it's warmer than when you're under the shade, all the way up to that high school level of these are all the components. We're going to strip the wire. We're going to bend conduit. We're going to run it, over this way. The wires have to be this long and at this gauge. And it really, we can tailor it all the way through. We have Joe McLaughlin is a retired physics teacher that is our community and curriculum manager, and he's working with schools and teachers continually to make sure that the curriculum is appropriate for that teacher and what's going on in that classroom, but then to also maintain continuity between all the member schools. I know a lot of people have been mentioning STEM, but we actually like to include the A for STEAM because we believe that it's not just about hooking up the system, it's also about making the system look appealing to the community, whether you're putting it on your roof or putting it in the parking lot. There's different aspects that go into how do we make it also a beautiful space, not just a functional space. Also within the arts, there's a lot of technology that needs to be that, or not needs to be, but it can be utilized. And so whether you're just learning how to wire up a system and understand what DC power is to be able to provide low voltage systems for our installations, whether that's lighting or anything, it all kind of fits together. So we're very focused on educating people about energy, about how it's used, about how it's harnessed, including battery storage is also important to us. Next slide. So I mentioned New Sun Rising's program where they're now, it's in a multi-purpose community facility where they're actually running a program for workforce training to train up people to be able to sell solar at the moment. And the overall goal is to end up having actual NABCEP certified installers to be able to help do the installations as well. We've been working on this originally since 2015 was when the first one at Fort Cherry went in. And we already saw at that point that there was going to be a need for the skilled labor to be able to be putting in the fields of solar that are now being installed, and that the schools are now realizing, hey, this is an opportunity for us to kind of flip this conversation on its head. And so we've been doing that, and we've been having good feedback. And this is something that we're going to continue to do because just like Rick had said, it's all about an energy mix. It's not just going to be one thing. It's not just solar. It's over time, we're going to continue to reevaluate that and be adding more energy options into our energy mix. Next slide. So if somebody was interested in joining the EDZ and having one of our solar systems on site to be able to support this, we first have an introductory phase where we've been put in touch with somebody in a school district or in an organization that's interested. And then we schedule a meeting with all the key players to go ahead and present it to them. And in that presentation, we'll usually end up discussing the current sustainability curriculums within the school or initiatives within the organization. And then we'll talk about the options for what the system can look like, what different add-ons are available, and what opportunities are there. And then also start to talk about where it can physically be located. And that's already an opportunity to start getting students involved by having them start to understand what shading is and how panel placement is affected by trees and all sorts of other environmental things. And this really kind of becomes the stepping stone for schools to get into the next conversation, which is fully putting up an array to actually offset their energy usage. Next slide. So as that conversation progresses and it starts getting more serious, and we see that there is involvement and there is interest in the system within the organization, then we start talking about some different funding options, whether it's within the school budget or there's grant money available. Now there's a lot more money available for these projects. Back in 2015, it was a little bit less, but it was still there. But we've actually been able to price out our system that the average system for an organization is less than 20,000, which we've found has been able to allow schools to make decisions in a little bit of a faster, it's not as big of an expense for them. And so they're able to get this in before having to go through a lot more red tape on larger projects. Once we have an agreed upon system and add-ons, then we can put out an official quotation. And then once there's buy-in from the organization, we can move on to the next step. Next slide. That next step is the scheduling of the delivery and the coordinated install, whether it's just with the facility maintenance people or it's bringing in another company to be able to do it, or our ideal situation is where we can involve another school that's a member and bringing their students over to actually do the installation themselves and get that hands-on experience. Once that system is installed, then we can go ahead and meet with the key players within the school that are going to be championing the system. And they're going to be able to go ahead and make sure that the curriculum is been adjusted and is good for them and for the classroom needs. One of the things that we've found that's very important is having somebody within the school be kind of the champion of the program. As I'm sure a lot of you guys know, it's great to put a project in at a school, but if nobody's actively using it and championing it, it can end up being just another thing on the wall that doesn't necessarily get utilized. So it's very important to us that when we're setting this all up is to have a champion within the school and then be able to develop the relationship to continue that as there is staff turnover or different initiatives change within the school. For more information, you can check us out on our website, ayinstruments.com/STEM. We have a little video, and that's really focusing on that Fort Cherry School, which was the initial installation. And if you're looking for more information, please reach out to us. We'd be happy to talk about what it would be, what it would look like to have an EDZ school or EDZ system at your school or organization. And we're definitely looking to open up more conversation around electric vehicle training and electrical vehicle infrastructure installing and training.
Thank you so much, Eitan. We really appreciate you being here to talk about the Energy Discovery Zone. We don't have much time left, so I just want to tell folks about the Get Solar process. If you're interested, if your school's interested in going solar, obviously, if you have existing relationships, that's great. What Generation 180 and, as Shannon mentioned, Pennsylvania Solar Center are teaming up. Unfortunately, Leo Kowalski, who's our director of the Get Solar program, is also on vacation today. But just to give you a little snapshot of what the Get Solar process looks like, what you'll want to do is go to, there'll be a website, we'll be sending out the links for that to Generation 180, and they will help you get started throughout the whole process. Once school is really wanting to kind of move forward a little bit, they can apply is really not even an application, but it's really just to give us some basic, very, very, very basic information about your electricity bill, your property where you think you might be wanting to install solar. That's about it. And then we'll provide a very high level assessment to give you some idea of what that looks like for you. At that point, we can issue a request for proposal on your behalf or work with the school officials to help prepare that request for proposal, sending it out to get qualified bids for your project, such as the power purchase agreement, which we talked about. And I can mention a few other things too. Once we get those bids back, we'll help you understand them, understand what's in them. We do ask the developers to provide assumptions that are all the same across the board, so they're easy to compare. But what we do also encourage people to do is that developers are pretty creative in what they're in actual installation ideas about where to put, how to structure these things, and also on the financing. So the proposals, allowing them to provide you with that creativity, have them come out on site, look at your facilities, and really a very interesting options that sometimes you will get back to compare. So it is really, I think, important to put that out to bid, to find different developers, and we really do try to focus on Pennsylvania developers in our work. But if there are other developers that you're working with as well, we're happy to do that. Our role is not to get in the way of the developer. but to try to make those appropriate connections. Once the developer is selected, we try to stay out of the way of the developer, but we're there to help and advise and walk through the schools or whatever entity that we're working with all along the way. CCAC was a community college of Allegheny County. Sorry, I'm having advancing issues here. But again, another power purchase agreement. Theirs was 22 years or 28-year power purchase agreement where the solar is actually owned by a third party. Again, they did not want to have this, what we call kind of a flip ownership after the third party has to keep that for at least 5 years. After that point, which we've heard today, some of those systems can be purchased back by the entity. But CCAC did not want to do that. They did not want to be responsible for the operational maintenance for the entire life of the system. So they chose to enter into this very long-term power purchase agreement so that they did not have to do that. And they're expected to save over $750,000 over that lifetime of that 28 years. There's another, I'm going to skip through this since we don't have a lot of time, but again, these tax benefits are really important. Obviously, the schools cannot take, they don't have tax appetite. So there's this partnering. There was some comment about the Inflation Reduction Act, which was just passed and signed by the president this year or this week. There are a lot of incentives for solar. So this is another really good reason to go solar now. I think all of us are trying to figure out what that means. We do know that the federal tax credit has gone back up to 30%. There still is this modified depreciation that's 100% can be depreciated in the first year. Now, those are benefits that are taken by the third party sort of for-profit entity that has that tax and that tax appetite. There are some direct pay options now too that are part of the Inflation Reduction Act where tax exempt organizations will be able to they can't take the tax credit, but could have a direct payment option. So that's not going to allow probably a lot of tax exempt entities to go solar without any money down in those situations still, but it does open up a lot of different options. And so we're expecting that developers are going to be coming up with, and investors, a lot of different creative financing that we'll continue to see. These credits are now transferable where they weren't, so that somebody else can buy those tax credits. And there are other additional tax credits now for projects that have a certain percentage of products that are manufactured in the United States, that also have prevailing wages the projects are built with, additional incentives if projects are located in environmental justice areas or low income areas, and also energy transition communities where like coal plants have been closed. So there are a lot of things that we can't even tell you about right now because most people don't even know how this is all going to play out. But it's really very positive and will provide even more savings for schools and other entities trying to go solar. So I did want to mention that Inflation Reduction Act and what that is. We can talk to, I won't spend the time now, a little bit more about power purchase agreements. I know it is a very confusing, sounds confusing up front, but again, a lot of these, what you heard today, that these are really easy agreements to go through. Lots of people are doing them all across the country, and it really does leverage the ability to move forward. So I just want to thank our speakers today. We will be sending out a recording of the webinar as well as the slides. And most of you who registered early enough today got the speaker bios, but it'll be included as well. So thanks again for all of you for joining this. Thank you for considering going solar. And we will touch base with you soon. And I wish that you have a wonderful weekend and enjoy sort of the end of summer here. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.